Thanks so much for being here. This is really exciting. It's funny because you guys are gonna be my guinea pigs today. My poetry manuscript, that my publisher has been hounding me for is due like end of this month, and it is not going very well. So anyway, these I've gonna read a couple poems, and these are the ones that I'm including in my manuscript, but I've like never read it out loud or really shared with anyone. So like, like if something is terrible, just like send like, I don't know, a bunch of eggs to my house and like hit me in the face with it so I know. I'd really appreciate it. Um, but yeah, these are all really new poems, though. Like they've been written in like the past, like in the span of like the past 3 years. Um, First one is for my friend Linda Mora, who hosted me in Montreal when I had a reading there. It's called Promised You a Poem. November, November, November. Everything has felt. Everything entered the trees before Montreal's branches laid more sentences on the yellowing ground. Everyone lined up for bagels, Sunday morning outside along quiet corners of the Rue. French radio, 7 p.m. music with no lyrics, improved my language of going to a city and wanting to fall in love with a place slower than I already have. Wanting to stay, wait on the lookout where language blew past comprehension, and I stayed behind when I left. This next one is called Diagnosis, and it quotes an epigraph from my medical document, which says left nephrectomy, A, high-grade renal cell carcinoma, 4.3 centimeters, maximum gross dimension, end quote. Saline right as balance as blood, as pH, IV, external vein searching and pricking again after collapse, like giving up. It's my body that's tender right now, I'm guessing. Equilibrium hangs and concentrates to show platelets, a way to regain control of themselves, mistaken nausea for symptoms of grief, but cancer hasn't spread, progressed deeper into arterial efferent filtration. For a whole November, I told no one, and no one knows now when or how it happened so quickly. At one point, self-love became a requirement of recovery, but even now, I'm sorry, I'm struggling. Only our emotions have metastasized. I guess I'm lucky. Most of the unwritten before, the heart waits 10 days from diagnosis to holes in my belly. A memory haven't processed what it's already forgotten in a week. Next to incision, the lungs email 2 sentences that makes it hard to cough or laugh, but reminds the recipient to breathe. Because I'm beginning to forget, and that's post-surgical recovery working, I think. Only one incision remembers clearly loss of something being removed from it, and now it feels confused by how long its tissues are stretched and stitched from scalpel's pressure after the others have stopped feeling / taking notice. If relief came an octave sooner, there would be less deaths in the world, less news followed by the chord progression of families crying. If illness was a song, it would be cruel for it to have a voice that sings beautifully through all of us, though all of us would be singing versions of that song. If our language had a word for space between symptoms and diagnosis, some people would never stop singing. Following continuity of care is patient, sifting through archived case history of self while the memory blanks. Body drawn, body dawn, meaning down, but to begin again, encountering on films the hilum vaguely remembering. Found is diagnosis falling into pattern of losses like the stuff that centuries are made of. Here the mass lines friable, necrotic at fissure, into hilum, blood chorus of vessels singing into organ making the kidney work. Sleepless, 2 a.m. producing urine / endless invisible blood. The patient cannot eat or drink from nausea. IV lays off digestive tract for a second day, like dress rehearsal for surgery perforating abdominal main. And pathology, I lost it. And pathology's light chain, fragments, malignant sheets, bearing unusual morphological appearance. Like all November, when words came in place of the poets in another 16th home, and gene expression thought about pronouncing goodbyes, synthesized longer and faster. This next poem, thanks guys. This next poem is for my partner. We kind of met both, well, at different times in our life, but we were both homeless youths, and so when we met, we connected over that. Funeral for a mink, for Jay. We planned funeral for a mink Saturday behind the A&W caught along small stretch of dirt road forming an almost forest. My hand in yours, we dressed in black for comfort, not planning our cherished walks side by side, sipping slushies to melt into an occasion for mourning. But morning finds us anyway. This animal not breathing nor in pain, already gone with the car tires that might have collided last night or this morning into soft animal, now tombstone, now body of loss. We had not space in our own bodies to contain. A mink. We pluck wild grasses and spread a quilt over its flattened belly, heads bowed, ignoring dewdrops that light up spider webs christening. You lower me into the spell of your grief, and I ask you, when was the last time you've cried? You say, not since your street days, watching the body of a young man lifted on stretcher to the hospital, learning only later it had been your friend who passed from an overdose. Grieving will be a part of our walking ritual from now on. Moving with us, concussing, howling at once past the fence 2 houses away with the punctual bark of the neighbor's Great Dane, announcing the ordinary, or doorbell, the news. Thanks. This one is written, it's also like around grief, which is what the new manuscript is about, but it also kind of you'll hear like the names of some poets like Fred Waugh and Phyllis Webb. It's partly about the passing of Phyllis Webb on a Remembrance Day a couple years ago. It's called Phyllis Writes, Words Escape Me, and I think the world is breaking my heart. First came healing, the learning that rejected ghosts as past tense, white bark, coughing sap like flesh, their only unblocked airway. Only it's sweeter coming out of trees, this first. Body senses that breathing is a precious thing, a diversion of air through the mouth, such evolutionary mercies, accounting for time, unionizing, strange evolutionary grief. Taught me about starlings, the flight of one's alignment, also alignment's dialogue and flight, guided by the field of vision of its 7 closest kin. That's the scientific denomination for how communities are made. to us synonym for it takes thousands to conduct magic. That's the unspoken behavior of murmurations. Always precise, a nurtured flight, like one bird's call or one poet's voice, skied with rain over shelter entering surface area of another. To me, magic of one influenced by thousands by the names of Blazer, Wa, Webb, et al. I call to the sun, though the star feels further away, though it's summer, aligning movement with warmer days. Small twig and yellow stone become same shadow inside sidewalk's heartwood. The mature and deceased crease of its lining, think nightjar soils, all disappeared, but shares one body with the pith of itself that lives. 1 year, grief ran its impossible course, like vocabulary of a strong wind, because the losses and their growing refrain, new age and newfound ache, mattered. The severity of early roseate mornings came, mattered, while forgetting made strange carbon atoms cry. Winnowed grief spun spore through quiet endorphins forgot. One evening, returned one afternoon along watershed's muddied gray arms, scaling fence to catch night 401 bus toward place that's got the clearest air I've ever breathed, says Hannah. Maybe it's clarity I miss. Clarity people say they see in me, except now recognition of a former sweet memory. New words formed by new weather on the forecast channel, unrecognizable past tense. How to speak the serenade of a swift passing beloved space. How to leave remembering what went before genus we call atmospheric river, or the anticipated nostalgia of leaving like churring calls from an ancient family of remaining arcades. Sonnet. Language that draws lungs, bridge, and beauty we fate. Ocria stamps us when those times we merger too close but never decease in a dream. My kidney is not a ghost, not necrotic sheath or ash. It has no regrets without the rest of me, no wings either. Nights the body walks steady on electrolyte matter, outside warmth already converted consonants of snow. Sunlight watered the blooms, cicadas and blue rocks planted. Acrylic anaphoras repeated like poems around the PACU, leaving us with one window's view of the city at night, surrounding a share of each other's dreams. Our nurses are vowels, spaces between beds and summer ashen. And that one is just called a sonnet. This one is kind of uplifting. I think I'll end with this one. It's for my friend, Julia. Also, Katie, I don't know what anxiety meds you're on, but mine like turned my body into like a science experiment and like a cocktail of just changing like different medications and different doses. Um, and so I think it's made me worse than before, hence my poems are not cheerful over time. But this one is from my friend Julia. Descending for Julia. I have known you enough to understand that when you say your life is like a surfboard, trying to ride the waves, you are its only hope of staying upright. I don't know everything you've been through. I have never been surfing, but I have tried to swim the ocean once, and swimming isn't a hard lesson. We only have to learn once in our lives. Is trying to stand back up when your feet are being cut by barnacles who've known this world much longer than we, and you have only the waves to latch onto. 2 meters from shore during high tide, distance doesn't matter. Entropy returns as force viscosity, as ancestors we've left in another land trying to reach us. It makes sense they try too hard sometimes. We are their descendants. I know you're waiting for another wave so you can demonstrate a flawless execution and tell yourself maybe it will stop hurting after that. But the water will see the bottom of your surfboard and think your shadows are growing taller. No, and think your shadows growing taller along the waves each year are tidal gifts progressing it too.